Hi, this is Ms. Bahak. Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast, where you can get fresh ideas for your training, nutrition, and lifestyle to immediately put to use. Listen in with Marcus Philly, the creator of functional bodybuilding, and myself.
Hi, I'm Marcus Philly, and we're broadcasting from Revival Strength in San Rafael, California.
We'll be talking about avoiding burnout, keeping your passion alive for training, and fueling your body and mind so you can look good, move well now, and for years to come. Before you go keto, start intermittent fasting, or take on any popular diet, check these basics off your list to make sure you've got the sustainable habits down first. Diets come and go, but healthy practices will keep you looking lean long after the fats and proteins get old. Med School Marcus will give you the lowdown on ketones in your body, and you also learn when a diet like keto or intermittent fasting is appropriate to take on.
Broadcasting live from Revival Strength.
With Ms. Bahak.
Minus the live part because this was previously recorded.
It's just fun to say.
It's fun to say, yeah. Oh, I love this topic that we're about to dive into. I got to confess, last night I watched a little Jersey Shore.
Okay.
A little family reunion, family vacation. The Shore House moved to Miami. All the Guidos are back. And we got Vinny, the Keto Guido.
Oh, no way.
Who's all keto now. And dude looks great. He was like super overweight when he was on the last, the previous iteration of the Jersey Shore. Now he's back and he's trim and he's fit and he's, preaching the keto diet.
Wait, does he still drink?
He does drink. So, and he talks about that a little bit where it's like there's, he's drinking vodka, vodka
Okay.
soda. Now he realizes that there's room for a little bit of alcohol on the keto diet to stay in ketosis. And there's a couple episodes where he's like, I did not stay within the recommended limits. Yeah, he gets pretty smashed in the episode that we watched last night. Him and Paulie drank like 2 bottles of vodka, just the two of them, and they came home so wasted. He literally was sitting on his bed, on the edge of the bed, with his hands in his face, and he fell asleep like that. He's like snoring.
That's hilarious.
Oh man. But I guess you want to introduce the topic?
Well, yeah, this was, from time to time, I feel like this one specifically was sparked by a client who wanted to hear us talk more about keto and intermittent fasting, and if there's any value to those protocols, and if so, just kind of expanding on it. But really, from time to time, I feel like this question gets asked pretty frequently, especially when I think, outside of the gym and outside of our community, from just like everyday people. We're like, oh, hey, what do you think about keto?
Yeah. Definitely.
It's
right?
like, okay, that's like the first thing that people are kind of associating with diets, it seems like nowadays. That I think intermittent fasting has been big for a while too, but
Keto's the new paleo.
Yeah.
Intermittent fasting's the new zone.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, look out, guys. I say that with like a lightness to my tone. I mean, there's a little sarcasm, but yeah, I mean, why that people are asking, because it's the fad. It promises results faster than people are, have experienced in the past, and then they're willing to wait, and it's a shame that while there's merit to all the things that we just mentioned, zone, paleo, intermittent fasting, ketogenesis, all that, there's so much merit to every part of to parts of each of those. However, we're using the same fear and fear-driven response from people that gets people excited about it. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting fat, or you're doing it wrong, and if you do it this way, we're also going to be able to like dangle this thing in front of you where you're going to get the result so fast. Check out all these people that had this tremendous result, right? And if there's anything I've learned over the years, is that any one of these fads, yeah, the merit is there if you follow them completely with 100%, structure, you're going to see results. And most people don't.
Yeah.
they can't. They struggle. And I've had a lot of clients, and now that we launched Awaken Nutrition, which is the nutritional outlined structure program that accompanies Awaken Training Series, we've gotten the question, hey, what about intermittent fasting? So the way I've been approaching it lately is just to say, okay, these different diets there's absolutely merit to aspects of them, and there's a lot of science that backs each of these. And this isn't the podcast to tune into to listen to what the scientific research says about intermittent fasting and keto diets. However, as a place to start, there are I think we believe together that there are other places that you can start that are much more accessible to more people, that will start to move the needle in the right direction on the progress scale. So, for example, we have an on-site client here. I'm going to name him because I don't think he listens. Sunil.
Okay.
Okay. Sunil is not. He's admittedly not doing a great job with his nutrition. There's a guy that came to us, and in a 6-month period of time has already lost like 15 pounds of fat and gained 6 pounds of muscle, and he's dropped all this body fat percentage. So that's happened from training alone. And now he's starting to see some plateauing. He's like, okay, I got to focus on the diet. And to be honest, I didn't know kind of the state of his diet because I'm not his personal coach. But it did surface that it's pretty bad. It's quite bad. I mean, and he's not ashamed to say that. Like, he knows it's not the best, and he's making some very, very classic mistakes. He's actually intermittent fasting without even knowing it, and he's falling victim to some major pitfalls as a result of it. But essentially, he just doesn't eat until the afternoon every day. Mm-hmm. But then by the time he does eat, he's undernourished, he's underhydrated, he's trained already during the day, sometimes intensely, and he doesn't make the best decisions, and there's probably a 6-hour window or 7-hour window of just overeating really low quality, high carbohydrate foods, which aren't really helping his body maintain, a good blood sugar management whatsoever. So we were having a conversation, and I gave him some starting points. Just hey, this is where I would start, to just get breakfast in with protein at the beginning of the day and drink some more water before noon. And then have, see how the rest of the day changes. But just get in your 30 grams plus of protein in the morning and see what that does to break the routine that you've been in. And he comes back to me, he's like, well, what about intermittent fasting? And I was like, well, essentially you've been trying to do that, and here's the challenge with it. It's a very hard place to start if you haven't built in quality nutrition principles to begin with. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you can intermittent fast, but if you break that fast eating garbage, then that garbage is going to only perpetuate more garbage, and you're going to lose self-control as a result of that based upon hormonal signals and brain signals that are happening. So you're really not getting a ton of benefit from that intermittent fast that you're doing. And that's also how I feel about people that are going from low quality, poor awareness around food, and diving straight into keto diet or IF or diving straight into paleo, because then those diets become a set of rules that you're either following or you're not. There's no in between, right? And if you stop following it and then all you know is poor quality nutrition outside of that, with poor timing and poor quantity awareness, then you're going to fall right back into those those old patterns. So why not work on developing good patterns first? And when you can develop those good patterns over the course of 60, 90 days and get into a good rhythm of quality, and then you say, hey, I'm feeling good. Well, there's two options there. It takes maybe 60 to 90 days or longer to get into some good rhythms. You start to feel good, and you're like, I feel great. I don't actually need to do intermittent fasting. What's the point? Why would I add anything? I'm already feeling great, and I'm losing body fat, and I'm looking good and moving well. The second is you get to that point, you're making progress, and you want to accelerate your progress or enhance your progress, and you want to take the next dive into how do I make a change on top of good quality nutrients, properly timed. Now you're going to add in 2 to 3 days a week of intermittent fasting. Okay, great, let's try it, because you've earned the right to go there by crossing off the other items on the list first. Or, hey, I've been eating meat, vegetables, a little bit of fruit, for 60 to 90 days because that's what you coach me to do, and I still want to lose more body fat. Okay, let's reduce your carbohydrate intake down by removing some of your fruit and going to really leafy vegetables, and then perhaps that person gets themselves into a ketogenic state. Mm-hmm. But we don't start there. We can move to that place if the time is right, and the person's goals aren't being met in these other ways that are, to be honest, easier. It's much easier to add protein at breakfast than to say I'm going to not eat until 2 p.m. every day and sustain that.
Yeah.
Or I want you to drink 40 ounces of water before noon as a first step versus, okay, you can only eat protein and fat for the next, you got to do it for at least 7 days, and then you have to sustain it if you want to stay in ketosis, versus just drink water for the first, half of your day, 40 ounces, and then let's see how that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think there's something to, I think it was John Berardi that I heard say this, where giving somebody just a diet to follow is like, it's like telling somebody to do a snatch who's never snatched before, right? It's like there's so many skill sets that go into being able to follow a diet or a protocol successfully that those skills need to be built, just like, muscles need to be contracted and trained to be able to do something that's requires a high skill level, like a snatch.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, it's for sure, it just feels more doable or sustainable when you think about, like, can I stick to drinking 40 ounces of water before noon a year from now versus can I stick to not eating until 2 p.m. for like another year? Like, it's more shorter term to think about it that way.
And then there will be a time at some point in the future where that starts to, where the next step that's harder starts to seem totally doable. And the next step that seems harder seems totally doable. It's like, same thing with fitness, Let's do some goblet squats today. Okay, I got that. Versus let's do some snatches today, right? And then after a month of doing goblet squats, like, hey, let's try a front squat. Okay, I can try that. After another month of front squats, hey, let's try this overhead squat. Okay, that's a little intimidating, but I'll give it a shot, Okay, after a month of that, hey, let's try this thing called a snatch balance or a hang snatch. You build into it. Mm-hmm. Same thing you build into the next tier beyond drinking water to start your day.
Right. And
it's all the same. It all comes from the same thing, because, like, it's funny you say John Berardi's like, it's like telling somebody to go and snatch, and I kind of giggled inside because I'm like, oh shoot, there's a ton of gyms out there that are just telling people to snatch in the first week that they're at the gym.
Yeah.
So they're the same gyms that are being like, hey, let's do this keto challenge this week, and then 50% of the participants, if you look at what they eat on a daily basis, they eat zero real food. They eat all processed food. The other 50% are all over the map in terms of, like, when they eat their food. And now everyone's going to go keto. It's like nuts. And that's just the mentality of I'm going to get you results fast. And you know what? There's a lot of businesses out there that are like, they thrive on that. It's like, I'm going to get you results fast. and people are going to like dive in. They're going to have like a month to 2 months of success, and then they're going to derail. And that business's job is to basically find the next thing that they can get somebody to buy into. And they're just doing that. And it's the revolving door of like just garbage and just lies. And it pisses me off. And it's why I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I got out of that scene. And it's time to just say, you know what? No, it's not going to, you're not going to lose 20 pounds of fat overnight or this month. I mean, Sunil is a anomaly. I mean, he had tremendous results in a short amount of time. I think it speaks probably more to like just how bad off he was to start, you know? The reality is that this is going to take time for people. And if you think ketogenesis is the path to fast results, it is. But it's also the path for a lot of people to long-term failure. And, you know, and that's not to say there aren't people out there that crush keto for a long time. But the people I know personally that are doing that, I can count on one hand. Mm-hmm. And that's just not enough for me, you know? And those people that can do that actually had a lot of experience doing good stuff prior to that. They were healthy, well-balanced people before they got into the keto lifestyle. So I just wish I knew that this topic was going to basically end in me passionately feeling like we need to have a heart-to-heart with our listeners. Like, it's not about making quick results. And intermittent fasting and keto, there's a time and a place for it, for sure. And I'm not saying that they're not valuable tools in the arsenal, and they haven't been used with great success by a lot of people. It's just that if you're trying to figure out the answer to the question of how do I do this faster and how do I get these results quicker, you're going to probably be unsatisfied with the result.
I know we dove right into talking about keto and intermittent fasting. If you could give, in a nutshell, for both of those, what's kind of the theory or the thinking, like just from a zoomed out perspective behind each one of those protocols, how would you kind of describe that to somebody who's kind of like, they've heard of keto, but kind of know what it is, kind of don't know what it is?
Ketosis, ketogenesis, keto diet. Your body has the ability to burn different types of fuel for energy. Carbohydrates are the easiest form of energy to burn, so when your body is fed carbohydrates, it will preferentially burn that as fuel, because it's just, when I say easy, it requires the least amount of energy and it's the fastest process to happen. Remember, our bodies are really just efficiency machines. They're evolved for efficiency. What's the most efficient way to get calories out of our food that we eat? How do we improve? Like, we evolved, survival of the fittest. The people that had the best digestion, that could absorb the most calories, lived. And then the fuel sources that we could get calories from the fastest without too much investment of energy, because you gotta burn 1 calorie to get 4 calories out. Okay, that's a net 3 calories. I like that. Versus I gotta burn 3 to get 4 out. That's a net 1. Let's go with the net 3, right? And that's more or less the carbohydrate versus, protein versus fat as fuel source. But in the absence of carbohydrates, your body has also developed tools to handle how to burn other substrates like fat and even protein. We don't like burning protein for energy, because that's really the macronutrient that provides structural, the protein stores in our bodies. There are no like energy stores of protein. There are functional stores of protein. All the protein that's in our bodies is used for functional purposes. It's like muscle, it's enzymes, it's cell walls, it's So if you start burning protein for fuel, you're breaking down tissue in order to do that. We do have fat stores in our body, and a fat store is just an energy depot where calories are basically stored in the form of lipids. And in the absence of carbohydrate for long enough, once you deplete your own carbohydrate stores, which you have some in your muscles and in your liver, once you deplete those and you don't have any more carbs in your diet, your body turns on a system that allows you to burn fat for fuel. And in addition, your body will need to start taking that fat and turn it into carbohydrates or into a carbohydrate analog, because your brain needs it needs carbs to function. And so if you don't have carbs, then your body's going to start burning fat for energy and turning fat into ketones, which is a similar chemical structure to a carbohydrate, which allows that to cross the blood-brain barrier and serve as a energy source for our nervous system. So that's where ketosis gets its name from. When your body switches on that mechanism to convert fat into ketones, which then fuel your brain, that's basically a way of knowing, hey, I'm in that state where I'm burning fat now for energy. It's not so much that now my brain is getting ketones, awesome. No, it's that now my body is burning its fat for energy, and it's not burning sugars. And when you start burning fat, that's in that state, people can and will lose body fat. So it requires eating very low carbohydrates, next to none, every single day. You cannot just eat endless amounts of vegetables, because there are carbohydrates in vegetables, and you can reach a threshold of how many carbohydrates you are allowed to have by overdoing vegetables. So people have a hard enough time as it is just eating vegetables as their carbohydrate source without reaching for bread or pasta or potatoes, etc. So now this is, and no sugary drinks, mind you, no fruit, any of those things, for the most part would put you out of a ketosis state. That would supply your body with enough sugars to switch off that process. It just takes a little bit. You get out of ketosis, your body turns on all the other mechanisms that burn sugars, and it takes time to get back into that state where the mechanisms that burn fat turn back on. So it has to be a sustained, consistent state. People that have been in it for longer, they can come out of ketosis and get right back in quicker, but that takes consistency. So that's ketosis, or the ketogenic diet, and it's got a lot of scientific backing for sure, and it definitely is a real thing that happens. And if you've ever fasted for periods of time, or you've done that kind of, Atkins diet is ketosis back in the day. That was something that was popularized. That came and went, and maybe the ketosis name is a better name for it. I'm not sure. Yeah. And then intermittent fasting is, I suppose, it's basically the notion of narrowing the window of time that you eat during the day. So fasting has a lot of really beneficial principles to it. If you deprive yourself of calories, and there's lots of animal studies that have been done where the animals that were deprived of calories or were fed less live longer. It helps turn on certain genes in the body that enhance longevity. There's potentially gut health benefits from not eating for periods of time, where you give your digestive system a break from the constant challenge of breaking down food and extracting nutrients. So intermittent fast might look like you have dinner at 6 p.m. and you have your last bite around 6:30, and then you digest that, you go to bed, you wake up at 6 in the morning, whatever. You have water, nothing but water, and then you perhaps have your first meal at 10 a.m. So the total time between meal to meal was 10 hours plus, what is it, 5.5, so 15.5 hours. So for 15.5 hours, you were fasting. And so then you repeat that same cycle. So really 15.5 hours a day you don't eat, except for water. And then the other, 8.5 hours, you have a window of time where you eat. And some people go longer. They go 16, 18 hours of fasting and then 6 hours of, eating. Some people have one big meal a day and the rest of the time that they're fasting. And some people will kind of cycle this. So they have 2 days a week where they go through a longer 16-hour fast. And then the other days they eat in more of like a 12-hour, 12 or 14-hour window. So those are kind of big picture things with that, each of those represent. And I think that, going into ketosis and doing the ketogenic diet is a bigger commitment. And oftentimes the keto diet pairs well with intermittent fasting, because once your body is burning fat for fuel, and you're eating only fat and not sugars, your ability to stay satiated for longer is a bit easier. But it is a big commitment. Like you can't just dabble in it. You don't get to go 3 days on and 3 days off. You won't actually get any of the benefits from it. Whereas intermittent fasting, it doesn't have to be a full effort thing. There's some merit to even doing a 1 day a week fast. But if you have good quality nutrition, good timing, dietary practices in place, you're varying your nutrients, you're cooking and preparing your own food, you're avoiding a lot of sugar, and then you decide at some point you want to add in 1 to 2 days of intermittent fasting, great. There's some benefit that can be had there potentially, and it's going to vary from person to person. So you just experiment with it.
When would either of these be kind of appropriate for somebody? Like, what's a frame of thinking around? I guess, well, one is you have good dietary practices and skills built up already. That seems to be one that you kind of hit on. But when else would this be something that you could kind of start to consider?
I mean, I think somebody, I think both intermittent fasting and ketogenic diets. Let me think about that for a moment. You would have to be in a state where you're. I think when it's appropriate is you're have good nutrition practices in place, and you might even at that point you're struggling with potentially some inflammatory related issues. So you've cleaned up your food considerably and you're still carrying a lot of body fat and you still seem to be relatively stressed. We need to continue to reduce your carbohydrate intake to a point where you're not getting sugars, because sugars might be stressing out your gut or might be damaging your gut along the way. And so naturally you move to a very, to just basically meat and fat that you're chewing well and having at timed intervals with, some vegetables here and there for micronutrients. Potentially at that point, if that person is successful with that, just keep them in ketosis, because it might accelerate or help them with their fat loss at that point. And then also intermittent fasting is another way to kind of approach the inflammatory issues of the gut. It's like giving the gut a little bit more rest. And really both of these, when practiced appropriately, can de-stress and really get people out of, they just decrease the amount of total insulin that the person's going to be exposed to in a day, and that can keep them keep their blood sugar a lot more stable throughout the day, help regulate their mental clarity and their emotions, and it could be appropriate for somebody that's struggling in any of those areas, that after having gone through a pretty, well structured and timely nutrition overhaul.
Yeah, I think that that sums it up. I think you dug into some of the details we wanted. I'd be curious to hear any follow-up questions people have around this. But the takeaway being, build the skills you need for sustainability and kind of lifelong success within food.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, when it's appropriate and if needed, you'll have an easier time accessing either one of these protocols, or maybe one that comes out in the future that has some merit to it too.
Totally. Yeah. It's doing ketosis, getting into ketosis and doing it correctly means also doing it with high quality foods too. Back to we'll wrap it up with the Keto Guido, but I follow him on social media, and it's interesting because he gets hit up a lot for like different brands that are like trying to sell their keto products, right? Like, try this keto bar and try this keto pizza, and it's like he's like the first to say, he's like, guys, like, every once in a while I'll post one of these things because I like to indulge a little bit here and there. I like to have some treats, but at the end of the day, keto is like meat, high quality meats. He eats grass fed as often as he can, good quality fats, organic vegetables, and that's it. It's like, it's not a keto pizza, and it's not a keto bar, and it's not a keto shake, because once that stops working, guess what you're going to go and buy? You're going to go buy a regular pizza, a regular protein bar, a regular protein shake, and all of that stuff is not real food. All right.
Thanks for listening, guys.
All right, see you next time.